My name is Jason. I'm 32 years old, and I've survived 3 encounters with evil that I still don't fully understand. The scariest part isn't what happened in each moment. The scariest part is realizing that all 3 incidents occurred when I was just a child, vulnerable and defenseless, with no way to protect myself. These are 3 different stories from 3 different periods of my life, but they're all connected by one terrifying truth. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time multiple times. If you love true horror stories that actually happened and changed people's lives forever, hit like and subscribe right now. And keep listening, because when you hear about the 3rd incident, you'll understand why I still have nightmares about cellars and tunnels and the things that hide in darkness. I need to start with the incident that happened when I was 9 years old. My cousin Tyler and I used to have sleepovers all the time back then. This was before smartphones. This was before everyone was constantly online. This was when kids actually did normal things like playing outside and exploring. Tyler's house was the place where we would hang out. His house was big and it had lots of different areas to explore and hide in. Tyler's older brother was named Joe, and he was supposed to be watching us while our parents went out for the night. Our parents were going to Atlantic City for their anniversary. They left around 5 o'clock in the evening. Joe was supposed to watch Tyler and me while they were gone. But Joe had no interest in babysitting 2 9-year-old kids all night. He had his own life. He had friends. He had things he wanted to do. So about an hour into the evening, Joe told us he was leaving the house and that we shouldn't tell our parents. Tyler and I didn't care. In fact, we liked it better when Joe left. We had the entire house to ourselves. We could be loud. We could do whatever we wanted. We ordered some pizza for dinner. We ate in the living room while watching some television. By the time we finished eating, it was getting close to 9 o'clock at night. That's when Tyler suggested that we play hide and seek. We both loved playing hide and seek, especially at night in Tyler's house. The house was absolutely massive. It had a finished basement. It had a main floor with a living room and kitchen and dining room. Then it had a second floor with 3 bedrooms and another living area. There were so many places to hide. We made one rule for our game. We could only use flashlights for light. We couldn't turn on any of the house lights. We thought this made the game more fun and more exciting. It made everything feel more mysterious. It made the game scarier in a fun way. Or at least that's what we thought at the time. Tyler said he would count first. He went down to the basement and started counting while I went to find a hiding spot. I tiptoed up the basement stairs. Then I went up the next flight of stairs to the second floor of the house. The upstairs had a whole separate living area with bedrooms and a bathroom. I went into one of the unused guest bedrooms. The guest bedroom had some old furniture in it. There were 2 big beanbag chairs stacked against the wall. I grabbed a blanket from the closet and I created a hiding spot between the 2 beanbags. I buried myself under the blanket and made myself as small as possible. I left the bedroom door open just slightly because I didn't want to be too obvious. I could hear Tyler's footsteps coming up the stairs. They were getting closer. I could hear him walking through the carpeted bedroom. He was searching the room for me. His flashlight beam was moving around. I heard him open the first closet. Then I heard him open the second closet. He was being pretty thorough with his search. Then I heard the desk drawers opening and closing. He was rummaging through them looking for me. I was trying not to move. I was trying not to make any sound. Then I heard Tyler's voice calling out my name up the stairs in a mockingly tone, trying to scare me. This was typical behavior during hide-and-seek games. He was trying to intimidate me into revealing my position. That's when everything changed. I heard footsteps in the room again, but they didn't sound right. They sounded different from how Tyler's footsteps sounded. These footsteps were heavier. They were slower. They had a different rhythm. And then I realized something was terribly wrong. I lifted the blanket slightly and I peeked out to see who was walking through the room. It wasn't Tyler. It was a man. A full-grown man. He was much taller than Tyler, much bigger. He wasn't Joe either. He wasn't Tyler's dad. I had no idea who this person was. He was just standing in the bedroom looking around, searching. When he heard Tyler's voice calling out from downstairs, he immediately became alert. His entire body went rigid. He quickly moved to the corner of the room behind a small piece of wall that stuck out. He ducked down and waited. It was like he was trying to hide from Tyler just like I was. I understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't Tyler searching for me. This was a stranger. A man who shouldn't be in this house. A man who was hiding from Tyler. Tyler had no idea that there was a stranger in the house. Tyler entered the bedroom with his flashlight. He kept calling my name over and over in that slow, drawn-out, mockingly tone, trying to scare me. I was praying. I was actually praying that his flashlight wouldn't move toward the corner where the man was hiding. I was terrified of what would happen if Tyler discovered him. Tyler's flashlight beam moved across the room. It landed on my hiding spot. He had found me. But at that moment, I didn't care about losing the game. I cared about getting us out of that bedroom. I came out from under the blanket and I acted like I was defeated. I fake laughed like we were just playing a normal game of hide and seek. I told Tyler that he had won. I put my arm around his back and I started gently nudging him out of the room. I was trying to act as natural as possible. I didn't want him to know that something was wrong. I didn't want to panic him. We made it halfway down the stairs when I finally told him. I dropped the bomb. I told him there was someone in the bedroom with us. I told him there was a stranger in the house. I nudged him again and I told him to run. We both ran downstairs and out of the house without looking back. We ran next door to the neighbor's house. We knocked on her door frantically. She answered immediately and asked us what was wrong. We told her that there was a man in Tyler's house. We told her that we needed to call the police. She didn't hesitate. She called 911 right away. The police arrived within minutes. I still remember watching as the officers ran into the house. They had their hands on their weapons. They were moving quickly and carefully through the rooms. After what felt like an eternity, about 5 minutes later, they came out of the house with a man in handcuffs. He was being led to one of the police cars. Even as a 9-year-old kid, I understood that we had just experienced something really serious. We had just avoided something terrible. The police took our statements. They asked us questions. They told us we had done the right thing by leaving the house and calling for help. But that incident never left me. Even though I was only 9 years old, I understood that I had been in real danger. That man had been in the house with us. He had been in that bedroom with me. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't want to think about what he wanted. 4 years passed. I was 13 years old. I had mostly moved past that first incident. I had other things to worry about. I was in middle school. I had homework and friends and crushes on girls, but I never forgot about what happened at Tyler's house. Then I was invited to have a sleepover at my friend Mike's house. Mike lived in a more rural area on a dead-end street. His house was on the end of the dead end with only one other house next to his. Across the street from his house was a large field surrounded by trees. Behind his house was a forest that went on for what seemed like forever. The night of the sleepover was cloudy and dark. There was a slight drizzle. Every so often, lightning would flash across the sky. The weather was gloomy and it matched my mood perfectly. Mike and I were in his room in the lower level of the house. His dad's bedroom was upstairs. Mike and I decided to hang out in the den, which was right near his bedroom. We were playing video games. We were just two 13-year-old kids having a normal sleepover. His dad had gone to sleep a while earlier. It was late at night. The house was mostly quiet, except for the sound of our video game and the occasional rumble of thunder from the storm outside. That's when it happened. There was a knock on the backyard window. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was loud enough to make us both jump. The blinds on the window were shut, so we couldn't see outside. Mike immediately got up and started to open the blinds. I told him not to. I told him it was a bad idea, but he opened them anyway. When the blinds opened, I quickly reached over and shut off the TV and the lamps. I didn't want us to be visible if someone was looking in. Now the den was dark and it was slightly brighter outside due to the storm. We could see out the window, but barely. We both stared out into the backyard. All we could see was grass, wet grass. There was nothing else visible in all directions. We were expecting to see someone standing there. We were expecting to see a person, but there was nothing, just grass and darkness. A small flash of lightning suddenly lit up the sky. For just a moment, we could see the entire backyard clearly. There was nothing and nobody out there, just empty space, just rain and grass and darkness. We sat there in the den with the lights off, waiting. We kept our eyes on the window. We were expecting someone to come up to it. We were expecting another knock or some other sign of danger. Minutes passed. It felt like hours. Nothing happened. Eventually, we decided to turn the TV and the lamp back on. We tried to pretend that the knocking hadn't happened. We tried to convince ourselves that maybe it was just the wind or a branch hitting the window. The blinds were open this time. Every so often, I would take nervous glances at the window, making sure that nobody was out there. We got absorbed in our video game again. We started to relax. We started to forget about the knocking. We were laughing and talking and playing like normal kids. I had almost completely forgotten about the incident when it happened again. There was a second set of knocks at the window. This time, we both jumped up immediately. We looked at each other with wide eyes. All the lights in the den were on now, so we couldn't really see outside very well. But just at that moment, a flash of lightning lit up the night sky. It was bright enough and lasted just long enough to illuminate the area outside the window. And we saw him. There was a person standing at the window. He was looking directly at us. In that split second of lightning, we could see his face. We could see his body. We could see that he was a man. And he was staring directly at us through the glass. Mike and I didn't hesitate. We ran upstairs to his dad's bedroom, screaming for him to wake up. We were screaming that there was someone outside the house. His dad immediately got out of bed. He understood that we were terrified and that something was actually wrong. The three of us ran downstairs together. We put on our coats and our shoes. Mike's dad turned on the backyard light as we ran outside. We also grabbed flashlights. We needed to see what was out there. When we got to the backyard, we noticed something immediately. There was a buildup of mud next to the back wall of the house. In the puddles of mud, there were heavy, distinct footprints. They were boot prints. Someone had been standing there. Someone had been at that window. Someone had been watching us. Mike's dad followed the footprints as far as they would go. The three of us were looking for any sign of where this person had gone. We searched the entire backyard with our flashlights. We went around to the front of the house. We even went out into the woods a little bit. But there was nobody there. The person had escaped. The person had run away into the darkness. We all went back inside and locked every door. Mike's dad checked every window and every lock. He was taking this seriously now. This wasn't kids imagining things. This was real. Someone had actually been at the window. Mike and I tried to sleep that night in the den, but neither of us could really rest. I was terrified. I was scared of every sound. I was scared to even look at the windows. We kept the blinds shut. The lights were on. But I still couldn't sleep. Then, at exactly 12:15 in the morning, there was a third set of knocks at the window. This time, the knocking was aggressive. It was violent. It wasn't someone gently tapping. It was someone pounding on the glass. Mike and I both screamed. We jumped off the couches and ran upstairs to his dad's bedroom. His dad jumped out of bed immediately. This time he grabbed something. This time he was ready. He told us to call the police, and he ran outside alone with a flashlight. We called 911 and reported what was happening. The police said they would send officers immediately. Mike's dad searched the yard and the surrounding area, but he found nothing. The person was gone again. He came back inside soaking wet from the rain, breathing hard, looking shaken. The police arrived and took our statements, but again, they found nothing. There was no sign of anyone. The footprints had been washed away by the rain. There was no physical evidence of anyone being there except for the terror in our eyes and the fear in our hearts. That night changed something in me. I realized that I had now experienced danger twice in my childhood. I'd been in two situations where a stranger had come into my life with intentions I didn't want to think about. I had been lucky both times. But how many times could I be lucky? Years passed. I was a teenager. I was in high school. I was trying to live a normal life. I'd mostly put those two incidents behind me. I had convinced myself that they were just unlucky moments. Just bad luck. Just coincidence. Then something happened when I was 8 years old. Wait, that's not right. The third incident happened when I was 8, but I'm telling it now after the other two. Let me explain. When I was 8, I had a friend named Chris. We were close friends. We did everything together. But then Chris and his family moved across the state. We lost touch for a while. When I was older, my mom agreed to drive me all the way to Chris's new house in the country for a weekend sleepover. I was excited to see my old friend. Chris's house was in a rural area surrounded by nothing but woods in all directions. It was a decent-sized house, but it was very isolated. We didn't do much the first day because I arrived late in the afternoon. We just talked and watched a movie and caught up. But during the evening, a couple of times I thought I heard sounds coming from below the floor. It sounded like something was moving underneath the house. I asked Chris if there was a basement and if someone was down there. Chris told me something that made me uncomfortable. He said there was no basement, but his whole family had been hearing weird noises coming from underneath the house for the past few days. They were planning on having an inspector come out to investigate. That made me nervous, but I tried not to think about it too much. We went to bed, and the next morning the weather was nice. It was partly cloudy and warm. Chris suggested that we go for a walk in the woods to explore. I thought it was a good idea. This was all new to him as well, since his family had just moved there recently. We went outside, and we started walking toward the woods. Near the edge of his property, there was an opening that almost seemed like a natural path into the trees. We started walking down this path. We were exploring and enjoying ourselves. Then Chris stepped on something. He stepped on a rusty old metal surface. It made a metallic thud sound. We looked down and we saw it. It was a cellar door. An old rusty weathered cellar door that had been covered up by leaves and dirt and debris. Neither of us had any idea it was there. Chris said his dad didn't know about it either. Chris bent down and he grabbed the edge of the door. He pulled it open and it made an ear-piercing squeal as the rusty hinges turned. The sound of metal on metal was horrible. It made my skin crawl. Inside the cellar, it was pitch black. We couldn't see anything, but we could see that there was a ladder leading down into the darkness. It went down into a very narrow tunnel. Neither of us wanted to go down there. We were both scared. We were both thinking that something wasn't right about this place. Then we heard it. A sound echoed up the tunnel. It sounded like something dropping onto a hard floor. Then we heard metallic sounds. They were getting closer. We realized immediately that someone was down there. Someone was climbing up the ladder. Someone was coming toward us. Chris and I didn't think. We just ran. We ran as fast as we could back toward his house. We went inside and found his dad. We told him what we had found. We showed him the cellar door. His dad's face went pale. He had never seen that door before. He had no idea there was a cellar under the woods behind his property. His dad called out into the cellar repeatedly asking if anyone was down there. He asked them to come out. Then he called a few of his friends over. When they arrived, the three men went down into the cellar together, while Chris and I were forced to stay inside the house. We waited in Chris's room upstairs. We could hear sirens outside. The police had arrived. We could see the flashing red and blue lights through the window, but we weren't allowed to go downstairs. We weren't allowed to see what was happening. Chris's dad and his friends came back up after about 5 minutes. They looked visibly shaken and nervous. They spoke to Chris's mom in private. They never let us know what they had found. The police were there for hours, but we were confined to Chris's room. It wasn't until I was 13 years old that Chris finally texted me. He said he needed to tell me what his dad had actually found down in that cellar. He said he couldn't keep the secret anymore. There were 3 full body bags tucked away in a corner of the cellar. There was an old cot where someone had been sleeping. There were broken beer bottles scattered everywhere. There was evidence of drug use. There was the smell of recently smoked marijuana. Someone had been living in that cellar. Someone had made it their home. Someone had been living underneath the woods behind Chris's house, and those body bags suggested something even worse. Those body bags suggested that whoever was living down there was responsible for deaths. Chris told me that when we heard the sound in the tunnel, when we heard the footsteps climbing the ladder, that person probably heard us. That person probably came to the ladder to see who was up there. If we'd gone down that ladder, if we had been curious and decided to explore, we would have confronted that person. We would have encountered someone living in a cellar with dead bodies. I don't know who that person was. I don't know what happened to them. The police investigated, but Chris never told me the rest of the story. Maybe they caught the person. Maybe that person got away. I'll never know. But I do know this. I have survived 3 encounters with darkness in my childhood. I was almost kidnapped, or worse, by a man hiding in a bedroom when I was 9. I was almost confronted by a prowler when I was 13. And when I was 8, I almost walked directly into a situation involving a serial killer or a kidnapper or someone equally dangerous. The scariest part isn't the moments themselves. The scariest part is the randomness. The scariest part is knowing that any of these things could have gone differently. If I hadn't been hidden during hide and seek, if the man had found me instead of Tyler, if the lightning had been darker and we hadn't seen the figure at the window, if we had walked down that ladder into the cellar. I'm 32 years old now, and I still think about these incidents. I still have nightmares about them. I still find myself checking locks on doors. I still find myself being hyper-aware of my surroundings. I still find myself scared of darkness and cellars and windows and strangers. The worst part is that I was just a kid. I was vulnerable and defenseless. And 3 times the world tried to take something from me. 3 times I was lucky enough to survive. 3 times something stopped the worst from happening. But I know that somewhere out there are children who weren't as lucky. There are children who didn't run. There are children who didn't get away. There are children who met the same people that I encountered and they didn't make it home. That's what haunts me. That's what keeps me awake at night. Not just my own survival, but the knowledge that others didn't survive. Others didn't get the chance to grow up. Others didn't get to become adults and tell their stories. I survived and I got away. But every time I look at a news report about a missing child or an abduction or a body found in a basement, I think about those 3 incidents. I think about how close I came. I think about the fact that it could have been me. It could have been any of us.